I'm going to cut the two halves of the tenon differently. I'm going to cut this first one with a hand saw. When we roll it over, I'll show you how to use the circular saw to cut that. A lot of pine timbers have a pitch in them that gets stuck to all of your woodworking tools, to your framing square, to your fingers. We use a product called Citramagic, which is a citrus-based cleaner that removes that pitch very effectively. I've actually sprayed a little bit onto my saw because it's a very good lubricant when you're working in pitchy woods. So the process here is just to make a couple of cross cuts like Pat did when he was cutting the tenon on the top of the post, and then I'm going to cut pretty close to my score line. So what I like to do is knock off the far corner, and then I can start sawing. Looks good. I'm fortunate in that the spine of this saw is roughly 2 3/4, so I know when this gets flush, I'm basically to the line. Knock that corner off. That makes it a lot easier to start. If I were just to hook on the corner, the teeth are so aggressive that it's very difficult. If I knock that corner off, now I have a little more bearing area, and the teeth don't dig in as much. As you get more comfortable with the saw, you might find that it's tempting to cut right on the line. It's actually better to leave yourself a little bit of wood so that you can actually set your slick into the score line when it comes time to do the slicking. So I was able to make just 3 cuts. If you had a knot, you would probably want to make several cuts through that knot and not leave such a big space between cuts. So the last time I did a chiseling demonstration, I wore my sight safety glasses, which are shaded. Our wardrobe consultant had an absolute fit, Blueberry, and she made sure that I have clear safety glasses. So this wood is pretty straight grain, as you can see on the side, and I'm able to go pretty close to the line and not worry about the wood splitting below my score line. Whatever I don't take with the chisel, I will be taking with the slick. So where practical, you want to get as close as possible to the line. Now that I know that the wood is not prone to splitting, I'm going to go all the way down. So as you can see, I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from the line. And again, because I have a very straight grained piece of wood, I can chisel very close to the line. Having a score line there really helps prevent tear out as well. All right, the rough out is basically complete. I'm going to switch over to the slick. Now at this point you could flip the timber over and rough out the other side before you start slicking. That just means that you end up flipping the timber more often, and it's nice to switch from chiseling to slicking. All right, so I'm just going to pare down to the line on this side so I have a reference point. Notice that I put the handle of the slick against my hip. That gives me a more controlled and more powerful thrust on the slick than if I'm just extending my arms out and pushing like this. So at this point, I'm just putting the slick right into the score line. Once I'm happy with this surface, I'll switch to the other side, pare down to the line, and then I can use a straight edge, connecting the two to make sure that I'm not removing too much material. Okay. All right, at this point, I am basically down to my score line on both sides of the tenon. And I just want to create a flat surface that runs from this score line to this score line. First, I'll work the end. Now that I've slicked to the line on the 3 sides of the tenon, it's worth getting your straight edge out and just double checking that you're not removing too much wood. So you can see that the framing square is rocking. Obviously I've got quite a hump in the middle, so I've got more material to remove. Just like with the mortise, the trick here is frequent checks to make sure you're not removing too much wood. So I'm just scraping my square around on the surface, and it very clearly marks the high spots. Notice that my shavings are getting thinner as I go. Again, just to be cautious, make sure I don't remove too much wood. Another technique that I'll use is to skew the slick off as I'm traveling in this direction rather than going at the wood perpendicular to it. That will usually give me a smoother shaving. All right, at this point you can see that I just have graphite marking over here and over here. which means I'm just barely missing in the middle, which is what you want. If your first few tenons aren't quite this flat or smooth, don't worry about it. It's more important to get the tenon to the correct dimension than having it look beautiful. The next step is to pare back to the line here. What I'll do is remove some of the wood below the score line first to make it easy to work back to the score line. All right, so you can see I put the slick right in the score line here at the surface. And now I'm just going to pare it right back to the line down the side. Now I'm just going to work my way across. I'll put maybe a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch of the slick into the score line and just pare it down. All right, the final check is to put the combination square on here and make sure that this surface is in fact perpendicular to this surface. I'm looking for good contact all the way down the combination square. It looks like the combination square blade is touching down here at the bottom, so I need to pare that back a little further. Good. Good contact all the way down. A little bit of a lump right here. All right, at this point, this surface is flat. This surface is perpendicular to this surface. This half of the tenon is done.
Hey there, thank you for watching. Here at Shelter Institute in Woolwich, Maine, we teach a wide variety of house building and timber framing and carving classes. We'd love to see you here, but if you can't make it to Maine to take one of our classes, our online class is available at shelterinstitute.com.